Igor, the drill. Finally, after all of these years, I have perfected it. The perfect pumpkin spice latte. Both flavorful and festive. Halloween, that time of the year where leaves fall and ghosts go boo. It's also the time of year that I love to sit back and play some spooky games. But what to play? Oh, what about... Oh, no, I've already done a video on this one. Oh, well, now this one looks frightening. And what about this one? Oh, vampires. Very scary. Dead Space, Red Dead, Dead or Alive 5. There are so many spooky games to play from, yet none of them seem to be jumping out at me. What do we have here? Koudelka? Koudelka? How the hell am I supposed to pronounce this game's name? Its logo looks like a bundle of sticks. But maybe that's the scary part. God damn it, I'm in. Wait a minute, you're not cursed, are you? No. Good. The mid to late 1990s was the era of survival horror. Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Clock Tower, just a few names that have earned their place in the ethos of acclaimed horror games. Yeah, the 90s were peak horror in gaming, not just because of the rise of survival horror, but also the advent of psychological horror with Silent Hill in 1999. What a time to be alive. I mean, I should know. I was 6. First, we had Alone in the Dark in 1992, a game that heralded fixed camera angles in a spoopy mansion. That then inspired Clock Tower in 1995, which in the same vein, relied on the protagonist surviving a house of horrors and running away from the iconic John Scissorman. These two games, and others I'm sure, were the foundation for the game that would coin the term survival horror, the original Resident Evil. And this game had it all. Big mansion, fixed camera angles, deadly traps. Resident Evil was the alpha and omega, which naturally opened up the floodgates for every developer and their dog to make an attempt at a survival horror extravaganza. Dinosaurs? We got them. Evil AI? Sure. Sticking your hand into poopy toilet water to solve a riddle? We got that too. Developers were just throwing whatever ideas they had at the wall, and to be quite honest, most of it was sticking. However, within that tangled mess of starchy concepts was a game so obscure, so experimental, that it had gone unnoticed by time. A little gem colloquially known as Koudelka. Koudelka is a horror-themed RPG that strangely mixes the atmosphere, story, and exploration of a Resident Evil game with a more traditional JRPG spin like leveling up, equipment, and a unique battle system that further stirs the pot by mixing tactics-based movement, something akin to the Ogre Battle or Fire Emblem franchise, with your basic take-turn combat. Initially released in Japan on December 16, 1999, as the brainchild of Hiroki Kikuta. Hiroki, a composer at Squaresoft at the time, was not satisfied with the current state of RPGs. So with the flames of passion burning in his heart, he approached the upper management with an idea for an ambitious RPG-based horror game. They told him, no, you make music, not games. So naturally, Hiroki did what any starry-eyed game dev would do. He left his stable job at Squaresoft and went to SNK and said, okay, look, I got this idea. SNK said, brother, say no more. And then boom, Sacknoth Incorporated was born, going on to create their first game, Koudelka, and later the Shadow Hearts trilogy. That is until a decade later, Sacknoth got absorbed by a parent company and no longer exists. Oops. Well then, I suppose that is enough history for one day. And I know what you're thinking. This game has been done to death by other creators like Majular, Dungeon Chill. I could go on, but those guys? Fantastic creators, I have nothing but good things to say about them. Lads, what do you say we do a Heroes of Might and Magic 3 hot seat sometime? I'll bring the code red. Anyways, I was told that this is a Treeky game, and because it's Halloween, I thought we could take a look at this PS1 horror classic together. So why don't we pop this bad boy into the PS1 and see what Koudelka is all about? intro! The intro to Koudelka is a testament to the hauntingly beautiful atmosphere this game exudes. We see landscape shots of a robed woman riding her horse across the lonely Ceredigion countryside. A seraphic chorus can be heard ringing in the distance, as if to moan some sort of tragedy, all coming to an end with our mysterious woman overlooking an ancient monastery atop a seaside cliff. Aberystwyth, Wales, October 31st, 1898. Monday. God, this intro sets up player interest so well. Who is this woman? What does she want with that old monastery? Why'd they throw Monday in there at the end? Is it because Monday's the scariest day of the week? I mean, there's not really a whole lot that could make this cutscene any better, except for maybe, I don't know, panty shots. A lot of them. And I'm not talking 1 or 2 skirt alerts. No, I'm talking several whole frill spills in one scene. Anyway, our scantily clad hero is none other than the titular Koudelka, a Romani psychic mysteriously drawn to the monastery and one of the 3 main protagonists of this game. And after some B&E, she enters the monastery and immediately we meet with our second main protagonist, Edward, a thief of no renown.
You're too early, Angel. I'm not dead yet.
Not yet, but it looks like you're going to die soon.
Koudelka, you don't say that to people. You don't say that to people and then hold a knife behind your back. Edward might be okay. Come on now, get with the program. Oh, wait, is that a werewolf? Koudelka is odd in the sense that its gameplay is something more like your Resident Evil, Silent Hills, survival horrors. Meanwhile, its combat, well, I got 3 words for you. Turn-based tactics. I guess this is the result of Hiroki wanting the game to be more like Resident Evil, but his employees wanting it to be more like a JRPG, resulting in Koudelka's hybrid style of gameplay. Players explore the monastery like any old spooky dooky setting, except instead of hearing a scary moan, groan, or squelch, and having a zombie pop out and get ya, you get a spiral transition. Cue the battle music, monster loads in. He's loading. Just give him some time. There he is. And I don't want to come across as a hater of this game's combat. I mean, I actually thoroughly enjoy it, but there is this intrinsic problem that kills any sense of tension a game has tried to build up through exploration, and that is running into a random encounter. You have this amazing, atmospheric exploration that just builds upon this feeling of dread with beautiful level design, and suddenly you're just ripped away from it and thrown into a battle against a desk. Know what? You thought I was kidding? Nah, that's literally a motherfucking desk. One moment you are in this derelict abbey with beautiful pre-rendered backgrounds, walking quietly as the wind howls outside, then suddenly, BAM! It just completely rips you out of the immersion that one side's trying to build and leaves you feeling confused and, let's be honest, a little bit sick. However, combat does hit a lot of the beats that I love to see in RPGs, like your weapon level ups, 6 spell animations, all bundled in neatly with this amazing battle music. It's all there, but having it mixed with the creeping dread of exploration, it's just a letdown. Now, when in combat, we see our name, HP, and mana to the bottom right of the screen, and then we see the option menu to the left. By clicking the menu, we get to choose to check out our character stats, pass your turn by waiting, move, or take an action. Taking an action further branches out into 4 more choices: attack, magic, items, or weapon. Attack is an easy one. You use your equipped melee or ranged weapon to smack the enemy. Melee attacks must be performed within 1 square of an enemy on the battle grid. Ranged attacks can be performed at a range. Magic can be used to cast offensive spells like Flare or defensive spells like Heal, both taking a round or so to charge up, then unleash. As you use your weapons and magic of specific types, I'm talking gun, sword, fire, water, etc., they will earn XP and eventually level up. The higher your weapon skill is in a specific weapon type, the more damage and times you can hit with that weapon. As for magic, it's similar to how weapons work, except instead of multiple hits to one target, the areas in which the spell can affect become larger, giving the caster the ability to hit multiple targets, provided they are within the range. And this goes for healing as well. The weapon action lets your character swap out weapons on the fly in case the enemy is resistant to your weapon's attribute. It's important to note that every time you pick pick up an item or get a random drop from an enemy, the weapon, armor, or accessories attribute is randomly rolled. Each attribute, normal, fire, water, dark, air, and earth, each deal extra damage to enemies weak to those attributes. The outliers being Mystic, which drains the MP of an enemy, Vital, which drains the HP, and Light, which deals extra damage to dark attribute monsters but ends up healing everybody else. And then finally, the item option, which opens your item menu, allowing you to reload your gun, take a potion, restore mana. But a word of caution, my dear viewer. Koudelka lets you rename all of your items. In one night, I thought this was really funny, so I renamed all of my items, which turned out to be a terrible idea because when I needed the revival item, Whiskey, I couldn't for the life of me remember what I called it. So you can only imagine my surprise when the item labeled Daddy's Sippy was the magic curative that could bring my allies back to life. And don't we all need a little Daddy's Sippy every now and then, huh? For this battle, Koudelka is alone and armed with a gun given to her by Edward, and I truly, in my heart of hearts, think this was a terrible idea. Yes, it makes sense story-wise, but it completely removes the need to explore the grid-based movement system since all you really had to do is sit back and spam the attack button. Koudelka gives the player so many different options in combat, and you do use most of them, but for some reason, movement is its weakest point. The battlefield is broken up into a grid, which the game tries to promote usage of by making some attacks and spells more powerful the closer you are to the enemy. This means it wants you to use the movement option, get in position, and then use your attacks. But I found through my entire playthrough, I rarely moved my characters. I would just sit back and let Edward shoot things, Koudelka cast big spells, and let the third party member James do what he does best. Not a goddamn thing.
That's not funny.
There was just no incentive to move because the enemies would just use their turn to either cast a spell, which gave me a few turns to attack, or run towards me, which gave me time to charge up my big spells, resulting in me killing them before they could ever make it to me. There were a few niche fights where I did have to move up and melee monsters, but I'd say probably 90% of my playthrough was just hanging out in the back lines. But my biggest complaint about combat is that every time your character attacks, the other characters and monster models on the screen have to disappear. Then after you're done attacking, the game has to reload those models, making it take up to 10 seconds before your turn actually ends. Not to mention, if you kill a monster, you also have to wait for the death animation and then for it to load out of the battle. If I were to look at combat as a whole, I would say that Saknoth absolutely knew what they were doing. Elemental resistances and weaknesses, decent weapon and spell varieties, progression for those weapons and spells, and some absolute kick-ass monster design. But it's really slow, to the point where getting into an encounter is less about progressing your character and more of a punishment for exploration. After dealing with the werewolf, Koudelka goes back and heals Edward.
It doesn't hurt anymore. I'm cured.
Yeah, and so I cured you, so what?
Yeah, so what? So what, dude? I cured you. It's not a big deal or nothing. I turned water into wine last week. So what? We then team up with Edward and head deeper into the monastery, fending off giant bugs, chairs, and finding an item known as Roman nuts. I know Koudelka is a historical piece, buddy. It's a little bit barbaric, don't you think? Looks like the poor fellow only has one left. It's not long before we meet with the groundskeepers of the Nemeton Monastery, Bessie and Ogden Hartman, who offer us soup and company.
Wouldn't you like some, dear? Don't you like potato soup?
No.
Please let me know if there's anything we can do. We are the only ones who live here.
Lady, the only ones who live... You got a 6-foot-tall cockroach that hangs out with a ghost clown upstairs. How the hell haven't you noticed that? Turns out this was once a monastery of a great saint named Daniel Scotius, who was said to have built this place to appease the evil spirits. That explains the monsters. It also explains the Hartman's ignorance to those monsters, because as soon as we leave, Edward begins to feel the effects of the poison they slipped into our soup, because spoiler, they're bad. Luckily, Koudelka was aware of it, so she refused the soup, and then cures Edward using her magic. Again, with the mystery surrounding the Nemeton Monastery ever growing, we find our final party member, my boy, James, who is doing what he does best, laying on the ground, unconscious, while being guarded by the Little Shop of Horrors plan. This boss fight doesn't offer much in terms of difficulty, but it does showcase the importance of enemy weakness and status effects. Using the flare spell does marginally more damage to him because, plant, and the boss itself can poison you as seen by this flashing status effects above your name. It at least feels like the devs were trying to show you mechanics to get your feet wet early, which as a man without an ounce of game development knowledge appreciates, even if the fight was super easy. And that is something that I am going to come back to again and again. Koudelka's difficulty. You can be wiping the floor with these chairs and then suddenly you're getting mutilated by a gug. Or this deformed three-headed hangman will just simply whip out a blicky and one-shot you. However, that is one of the upsides of Koudelka's combat, the monster design. There are tons of monsters in this game, and these creatures are the most vile, eldritch, and sometimes just straight up scary critters to roam these lands. Some of my personal favorites are Desk, Cat, God. While some monsters are pretty mundane like knights or clowns, most are unique and have some awesome animations that go along with their models. Like just check out this ghost. Oh, real spooky there, pal. What's he gonna do? Sick, stretch, fatso, and stinky on me?
Oh my heavens.
But getting one-shot by enemies will become the norm if you do not find some armor, which is easier said than done, because there are no shops in this game. You have to go out, have a chance of finding an enemy that has a chance of dropping armor. It's crazy, but it's also so worth it. The difference in HP between wearing armor and not is night and day. Also, I should quickly mention the stats in this game because it is a JRPG of sorts. Stats definitely play a part in combat, and Saknoth did a fantastic job of balancing the spread of your stats. Strength makes you do more damage, but without the dexterity to go with it, you will miss often. Same goes for intelligence and mind. Vitality increases your defense and health, agility makes you act faster in the turn order, and luck increases drop rates of items as well as critical hits. Piety is the most interesting because it's your magical defense, but if you do not balance it with intelligence, your magic defense becomes so strong, it starts to resist your allies' healing magic, which, to be honest, wasn't much of an issue, because I rarely, if ever, use healing magic. James finally awakes in a stupor and we get our first interaction between the three of our heroes.
Far be it from me to expect any words of gratitude from you.
I see. And I can tell from your appearances that the power of your faith alone was not enough to smooth things out with that monster.
It wasn't the kind of problem that faith alone could solve.
Damn okay, Koudelka. You got some pretty great voice acting. But honestly, it's the interaction between the main cast that makes it so great. It's just so toxic. They hate each other.
Did you see that? Will you shut up?
The chemistry between the characters in Koudelka I found absolutely enchanting. And I know it's kind of redundant to say, but anytime I hear these three squabble, I genuinely feel like I am sitting at a theater, front row seats, watching actors have a conversation. Each character coming from a different path of life are all drawn to the monastery for different reasons. Koudelka is an orphaned Romani psychic who led a life of solitude as she was feared for her powers, drawn to the monastery by a spirit asking for help. Edward was born of a rich family but ended up pursuing a life of adventure and winded up at the monastery because he heard some rich bozo set up shop here and was living a scandalous life, so he decided to check it out. And then you have James. Good old James. Well, he's a man of God, you know.
I am a busy man that does not have the patience to teach you the importance of faith. Obviously a dirty immigrant thief.
Seek help from someone you've never met before is ridiculous, especially when people are dying from hunger every single day in London.
They're all filthy and immoral little beggars that deserve to die.
Koudelka's a snob, James is a bigot. I'm starting to think that these guys aren't the good guys. Saknoth really wanted you to know that the three main protagonists are terribly flawed people in a horrible situation where their survival is only determined by working together. Now that is some good storytelling. James particularly is a little bit more in-depth as a character, but when we first meet him, he just comes across as this pious bigot, and fun fact, he continues to be that way for the rest of the game. But as time passes, the more is revealed about his past, and trust me when I say, he is borderline the most important person in this story. Too bad he sucks in combat. But with all three party members obtained, we are left to wander the Nemeton Monastery, uncovering its secrets, and finally, I get to talk about exploration. The Nemeton Monastery was once a place of holy importance, sanctified by one Saint Daniel Scotius, but now is a desecrated shadow of its former self, and it is a vibe. Because the exploration of the monastery is by far my favorite aspect of this game. Something about its backgrounds add that sense of dread that really make me feel the old ookie spookies. And let me tell you, Koudelka had some amazing Ookie spookies. Each background is eloquently designed, telling its own story of sorts, which is awesome because in some of these scenes, the more you look at it, the more you see how wrong or messed up something is. Like take this room in the dungeon, for example. At first it seems like a root-covered cavern, but then you notice the organs, the pulsating blood-covered vines coiling around the stone pillar. Ewy, gross for sure, but then you notice the head growing out of the vine. It's a creature of some kind. It says, I just worked here. Yeah, sure, the pay isn't good and the benefits could be better, but the living conditions are to die for! There is just so much detail in each room that drives the subconscious want to keep exploring, to see something you don't want to see. What's down those stairs? What's behind that door? That's a scary hallway, isn't it? Koudelka nails that fear of the unknown and really makes for a good survival horror experience, never really letting off that spooky pedal. Well, until you get into an encounter, that is. However, the one time I think Koudelka really utilizes its combat for some grade B spooks is in the save rooms. They are like the total opposite of your traditional survival horror game. Usually, a save room is a place of refuge. But in Koudelka, the first time you visit a save room, you always get this little prompt that says something's not right, which is then always preceded by a boss fight. And these bosses are the most grotesque and difficult monsters in this game. You think you're safe? Bud. Another little detail I like about Koudelka is whenever you are around an item or interactable, she will actually look in its direction. And thank God too, because this has helped me so much. Pre-rendered backgrounds have this funny little tendency to blend things together, making items or objects the character is supposed to interact with hard to see, which isn't typically a bad thing, except there are some items in this game that are hidden by the foreground, and some that if you miss, you cannot progress. The good news is the game's map is an absolute godsend. I'm actually so happy with it, not only because I'm a cardophile, but because the map has the same mechanics as a Resident Evil or Silent Hill game, aka it's based AF. It tells you when you have or haven't explored a room, even going as far as to labeling a room with a big X if you missed anything. And it's not a perfect solution in aiding a lost player. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't sick of playing I Spy in an X-marked room unable to move out of fear of getting into combat until I was absolutely sure I had figured out what I'd missed. Now, before I move on, I need to, and I mean I gotta talk about this game's music. Hiroki absolutely knocked this whole soundtrack out of the park, and I know his whole thing is he's a composer, but holy hell! The four main battle themes, Waterfall, Incantation Again, Patience, and Kiss Twice, are 4 songs that I will continue to listen to for the rest of my life. But amongst the ammunition, the curatives, the weapons, you'll find puzzles. You remember puzzles, right? Huh? Moving statues, riddles, piano! There are a bunch of puzzles. Well, hold on now. I can only remember 2 puzzles where I felt like I was actively participating in the solvation of said puzzles. One where you walk across symbols in the correct sequence, and another where you had to walk across symbols in the correct sequence. Huh, you know what? Now that I think about it, I don't think Koudelka had a lot of puzzles. I mean, at least in the survival horror sense. 90% of them were just using the right item on the right object, which, to be fair, is how other survival horror games go about puzzle solving, but at least they have some more interactive puzzles. For example, in Koudelka, there is a puzzle where you need to get into a safe, but to do so, you need to gather up the missing pieces of a stained glass window, which upon completion gives you a set of symbols. I ended up writing those symbols down in my little notebook, since I remember the safe having some sort of decoder on it, but as soon as you get to that room, the game just automatically solves it for you. Luckily, what Koudelka lacks in puzzle design is more than made up for in story. As we progress through the dark corridors of the Nemeton, we begin to piece together its nightmarish past. Because of Koudelka's psychic ability, she often is able to make contact with spirits who roam these halls, taking on their memories and feelings. The first instance of this happening is shortly after we get James. We enter into a room and Koudelka is forcefully taken over by spirits, who tell her that after the passing of St. Daniel, the monastery was used as a prison by local authorities who would lock up and kill people who went against them. Then almost immediately after this revelation, we leave the room and have our second FMV where we meet with this ominous little girl.
I wanted you to lay down and die.
A ghost?
Funny enough, the voice actor for Casbet over here is a young Sarah Paxton. You know, Darcy's Wildlife, the worst Halloween Town movie. And I just want to point out that there are actually a ton of FMV scenes in this game, FMV being full motion video. And I would wager that's the reason why this game comes in 4 discs. Because only an hour and a half into the game, we get past the encounter with the ghost girl, get another FMV where we fall into a dungeon, and then boom, disc 2. And you know what? I'm fine with the game being 4 discs, as long long as it means I get more moments like this.
Holy Savior! The secret of the Fomors from the bottom of the sea. Immigrate!
A ghost?
From the dungeon, we make our way through its limestone caverns and torturous chambers, fighting monsters and eventually making it to the West Wing, encountering the last normal person we will meet in this game, a thief who confirms our suspicion that the Hartmans are the ones killing everyone who come to the property.
I've heard the others screaming through the night, clutching their bellies. I find them in the morning dead. No, I'm telling you, their fingers to their hearts, right through to their organs with a pain.
Yeah, that's what I would have done too, Edward. Man's got dyslexia or something. I mean, may as well put him down now before it spreads. The thief tries drop chandelier on party, and we get this boss fight unique to only once. They introduce this mechanic where the thief hides behind barrels, and the only way to deal damage to him is by breaking them. I wish they had more fights like this, adding obstacles or terrain that would make for more engaging combat. Instead of just sitting back and slinging spells and shooting bullets, you could ascend or descend walkways, be slowed or get stuck in mud or tar, hide behind boxes like the thief did. And I know, that's a bit ambitious, but a man can dream, can't he? Past the thief is the floor puzzle room I mentioned earlier, but since we don't know the solution, we backtrack into another room that triggers Koudelka's psychic powers, this time giving us cryptic insight into some sort of dark ritual involving an implied resurrection of a woman named Elaine.
Elaine, I just want to make you happy. Will you marry me?
Oh, okay, I think I understand why there's suddenly a bunch of monsters. Listen, I'm no warlock, but I think doing an incantation while under the influence of a bottle of Jack might not end up with the most desired outcome. Turns out this man's name is Patrick Hayworth, and he had purchased the Nemeton Monastery in hopes to use its consecrated grounds as a catalyst for the resurrection ritual found in an ancient tome known as the Emigre manuscript. I think it's called the Emigre, right? Yep. A book that is not unlike the Necronomicon in Lovecraft's works.
What? What is that?
Sorry, Koudelka, I didn't quite catch that. Yeah, that's what I thought. The team finds themselves in this old library where they meet with the eccentric warlock, Roger Bacon, which has to be the best warlock name I have ever heard. He has become this horrific mummy of a man after using the emigre to make himself immortal. And during this time, James finally reveals that he has come here on a top secret mission from the Vatican itself. Old James here is your regular Ethan Hunt if he were a bishop. And a bigot. You see, deep below the Vatican laid the emigre manuscript for many years. However, Patrick Hayworth, who we find out was James's old friend, bribed someone to steal it for him and deliver it to the monastery so he could practice his occult magics. Now, James is here to convince Patrick to give back the book and cease his pursuit of mysticism. Something I didn't know about Koudelka before I started playing it is that it dabbles in one of my favorite subgenres of horror, eldritch horror. And it's not forthright about it either, which just adds to the story's mystery and intrigue. Like one moment you're fighting a ghost, and then the next an amalgamation of body parts. All of the signs are there, but the more you look for them, the less you'll want to see. Necromancy using a forbidden tome. Horrific abominations that are presumed to be once human. Literal Lovecraft monsters. They got a Gug, Shub-Nigroth, Shogaths. Hell, they even have the Black Cat from Rat in the Walls. But with our goals clear, we set out to find the emigre manuscript and apprehend Patrick Hayworth. How do we get to him? Gotta pass through the cathedral, where we get to fight this handsome man, because this horrific creature spawns from negative energy, separating Koudelka from Edward and James, leaving us in a one-on-one fight. But he's invincible, so you gotta run away. Now playing as just Koudelka, we make our way outside into the courtyard and into the fountain, only to be knocked out by a pirate? This game's got it all, huh? Lovecraftian monsters, mummy men, pirates. What's next, an old lady with a shotgun? Holy shit, lady, put that down! Turns out that pirate was actually Ogden, and he had a little bit of a mentee bee in the torture chamber before being shot by his wife, Bessie. Bessie then tells Koudelka that the Hartmans were servants of Patrick's, and that Elaine was Patrick's wife, who died when a thief came into their property and murdered her. So as an act of revenge, they would kill any trespassers on sight. Koudelka, feeling that there was a bit more to this story, is then set free, but before she could press for more answers, Bessie ends her own life. Leaving the Hartmans behind, we traverse the courtyard meeting with Roger again, which, by the way, he's actually the best character in the game.
anyway.
Like, come on, you gotta love yourself a goofy skeletal man. Mr. Bacon opens the gate for us so we can make it back to Edward and James, and when we do, James divulges that while in university, him and Patrick both fell in love with Elaine, and that their friendship ended because of this love triangle, with Patrick ending up the victor. However, Koudelka is still unsatisfied with what Bessie said, so she decides to take the key to Patrick's mansion and investigate further. Now, do you remember Charlotte? Well, before we enter the mansion, we meet with that lovely bundle of joy one last time, and there are two different outcomes to this encounter. One, you solve the safe/stained glass puzzle and receive the letters item. You give them to Charlotte, revealing that she was the daughter of the Hanover Queen and that she was born in secret and spirited away to this place. Her mother would continue to send letters as long as she drew breath, but unfortunately they never ended up reaching her child. This revelation purifies Charlotte and she passes on. The second outcome is fighting this. We enter the mansion and meet with the spirit of Elaine, who says that she is the one who called out to Koudelka and that Patrick, with the help of Ogden, did actually succeed in resurrecting Elaine, but it was only her body, which is now nothing more than a monster. She then requests that we destroy her body and end the darkness before it spreads.
It mustn't exist in this world.
Wait! Elaine! Elaine! Elaine!
There is a ton of funny or out-of-place dialogue in Koudelka, but to say that the voice direction in this game is bad? You're wrong. When the voice actors are meant to feel emotion, they feel emotion. And yeah, it's fun to make fun of voice acting in old games, but sometimes the performance should be admired, like in Koudelka. I mean, the voice acting perfectly embodies both comedy and tragedy in such a balance that I couldn't tell half the time if I was laughing or crying. You can actually find a document in Patrick's lab that outlines a large portion of the story, so to Cliff Notes it, the ritual required a lot of human sacrifices. Like a lot. So much so that Ogden and Bessie helped kidnap prostitutes, chop them up, throw them into the resurrection vessel beneath the cathedral, which ended up resulting in a massive tree appearing known as the Tree of Life. This, of course, is the reason why the Hartmans would attack people, not out of revenge, but to cook up a fake Elaine and some people juice. With this knowledge in hand, we head back to our boy Bacon, who tells us that we need to find the body part of a saint, the arm of Daniel, to which we must throw into the vessel, weakening the tree's roots. Luckily, I already found that after being attacked by the thief, and we head to the cathedral. Unfortunately, the door is sealed. However, fortunately, James is a bit of a scientist himself, and he thinks he can destroy the wall with some nitroglycerin. Now, after we blow up this wall, there is, and I kid you not, a 10-minute cutscene of both Edward and Koudelka info dumping their backgrounds to one another. And if that's not bad enough, they do it drunk.
Charlotte has made her peace, and
with the tub of the Vicks Vapor Rub in hand, we plant that bomb, blow up the wall, enter that twisted cathedral, say hi to the corpse of Patrick. Hello! Throw the arm of Daniel into the vessel, and light this mofo up. Now, the last 20 minutes of this game have you climbing the outside of the cathedral while it's on fire, up the scaffolding. It's so cool. You're fighting off the roots of the Tree of Life, floor by floor, and once you get to the top, what the hell, Sacknoth? What? You just walk up and get instantly turned to goo like someone opened the Ark of the Covenant? Turns out there are multiple endings to this game, and well, this was the worst one. You were supposed to remember the pendant that fell off Koudelka in the beginning cutscene, and work out that it fell in the fountain in the courtyard. Because yes, that's exactly what I was looking at the entire scene. Definitely not Koudelka's beaming white bloomers. No, sir, I have a wife. If you fail to get it, you get the bad ending, so what you want to do is get it before you throw the arm into the pot, deflect the beam, and of course, now there's a naked lady running on the roof. This is Elaine's body, who in Koudelka's Mr. X segment, chases you to the pinnacle of the cathedral. Every time you move up a flight of stairs, you get this "Elaine has caught up with you" text box, forcing you into an encounter. And let me tell you, she ain't no pushover. Elaine is the hardest boss in this game, and you have to fight her 3 times in a row. In the first phase, she is resistant to any water or earth attacks and almost impossible to hit with ranged weapons. Also, she does what I do and sits back and slams you with this high damage lightning attack that hits everyone at once and also poisons you. Second phase is exactly the same, except she's resistant to fire and wind and more susceptible to earth and water. Not that it really made a difference, because I'm pretty sure I was over leveled at this point and my magic was just kinda nuking her. But her final phase. Elaine V3 is capable of 2-shotting you, and that's with me being over-leveled and having really good armor on. She also acts on the same turn she casts most spells, making her incredibly threatening. She also can heal herself, which is like, bruh, I could barely keep ahead with my damage because I didn't really level my healing, meaning that I had to heal one party member at a time, sacrificing turns to do damage. But of course, with some spell slinging, crossbow sniping, and James there for emotional support.
I can't feel my arms!
We defeat Elaine's body. The good ending of Koudelka wraps up with the twisted body of Elaine exploding in a gory mess, falling into the fires below, and our party sitting atop the ruined tower looking out at a glistening sea. All's well, right? Well, not exactly. That was only the good ending. There is a third canonical ending where you deflect the beam but fail the fight. And in a desperate attempt, James prays to God and in the most literal sense is Deus Ex Machina'd into heaven with Elaine, leaving Edward and Koudelka to flee the crumbling monastery. Had I not accidentally Googled the other endings after being shoop-the-whooped by some naked lady, I would have considered that the good ending was when you beat her and she died. But to know that the actual canonical good ending is when you lose in the fight, that just diverted my expectations. And honestly, it's something I really appreciate and felt was super unique to Koudelka. In my opinion, if Koudelka was simply just a survival horror game, there is not a doubt in my mind that it would have reached the level of fame that Resident Evil and Silent Hill did. But unfortunately, its JRPG elements, like its slow combat, really held it back. But regardless of that, I would be lying if I didn't say that I loved every single second I played of this game. Its atmosphere was perfect, its story intriguing, the music was phenomenal, and sure, it had some campy voice acting, but the performance was something to behold. In the end, I saw Koudelka for exactly what it was, a beautiful mess of a game made by some ambitious and passionate people. And I know it's not possible now, but if Saknoth ever decided to come back and make a true-to-heart sequel to Koudelka with faster-paced combat, buddy, I would be all over that like a raccoon in a dumpster filled with expired cheesecake. I'd be a little confused at first, but then get really aggressive and way too into it. Anyway, happy Halloween, everyone, and remember... Nah, I'm just messing with him. Igor! Come now, make haste, for Master is thirsty for another pumpkin spice, and I cannot wait a moment longer. For God damn it. Hey, thanks for watching. Huge shout out to the members and Patreons of this channel. I know it sounds cliche, but your support really does keep me going. If you'd like to support me and help build bigger and better videos, then I highly suggest you become a Patreon. Also, big thanks to Madular for making that ending random encounter bit for me. If you love deep retrospectives on RPGs and more, you can find him over on his channel of the same name. And of course, you know it's that time again. Mega shout outs to my Ruby Gang patrons, Kiriel and Cameron. Does your charity know no bounds? Anyways, happy Halloween, everyone. Stay spooky and blah.